Today's sponsor is 3D Bear, an amazing augmented reality programming app for the classroom. Join us next Wednesday, December 19th at 9 p.m. Eastern for the Teaching with Augmented Reality webinar. Stay tuned at the end of the show to learn how to register. Hey, everybody. So today we're going to have a fun conversation about 5 things to keep in mind when implementing technology. We're also going to talk about some really cool tools for college classrooms, including one that I had never heard of before. This is episode 405. Hope you enjoy.
The 10-Minute Teacher Podcast with Vicki Davis. Every weekday, you'll learn powerful, practical ways to be a more remarkable teacher today.
So today we're talking with Dr. Joshua Elliott, Director of EdTech from Fairfield University. He has for us 5 things to keep in mind when implementing technology. So Josh, what's your first?
One of the things is when I framed this, I was thinking some of the issues I've had in my intro to EdTech classes where sometimes students could get a little intimidated by the tech class. They're coming from all different areas. So this is where I'm coming from with this. And one of it, the first one is take as big or small steps as you want. The way I think about this is walking into an ed tech class, I think a lot of the students are nervous that they're going to just get a lot of things thrown at them. And there's a lot that we cover, but I want them to know that you don't need to take everything you see in the class. You need to pick and choose and see what works for you.
Absolutely. As I always say, innovate like a turtle, tiny little steps forward, and it works. Awesome. I love that. Okay, what's our second, Josh?
To keep in mind that it's just a tool. As ed tech people, we're very passionate about what we're doing and everything. But the fact is it's common sense, but sometimes I think we lose sight of it, that it is just a tool. And we have to focus on, best learning practices and what's best to improve learning. If we keep in mind that it's just a tool and we focus on the learning and the skills, then it helps to make it a little more approachable for us. I think sometimes teachers may get intimidated by the fact that, these students have a lot of the technology in hand. And I think reframing it a little bit might make it a little more approachable.
And that makes so much sense. I remember once talking to a science teacher in the days when wikis were the rage, and he was using wikis on everything. And he says, well, my kids know how to use wikis, but they don't know much about how to do science. And I'm like, well, what are you focusing on? Well, how to use a wiki. I'm like, well, is it wiki class or is it science class? And he shifted. And I think a lot of us have done that before and made it about the tool instead of about the learning, haven't we? Yeah,
exactly. I mean, if you take just giving a good presentation, what's really changed since when I was in high school? I don't know if it's changed. You need to communicate. You need to know your material. You need to back it up with a statement. So if you take the tool, whether it's a tri-fold piece of board, PowerPoint, slides, Prezi Haiku deck, Adobe Spark, what goes into that presentation is going to change. And a week from now, it might be something different. But framing it around the skills makes it a little less intimidating, I think.
Okay, what's our third?
Forget the roles. Before I was an ed tech professor, I was a social studies teacher at a high school, and I really enjoyed it. But the thing is that teaching, for instance, U.S. history, the Civil War always ended the same way. But in my ed tech class, the thing is I can't get out of a class without learning something new from my students. It becomes very symbiotic and collaborative. And if you take this approach in K through 12 also, it increases engagement. Don't feel like you have to know everything. The students, they're very happy to teach you something, and it increases the engagement. It makes you more approachable, and I think it just improves the feel of the class.
Sure does. I was sitting down with a student, and he had used Adobe Premiere and made this incredible video for his English teacher. And I'm just sitting there with my mouth open, and I'm like, and how did you do that? And how did you do that? And I kept pausing it. And he's like, you don't know how to do this? I'm like, no, you're teaching me. And it just blew his mind that there were so many things that I didn't know, but I guess also maybe that I admitted it. So it can be uncomfortable, can't it?
Yes, it can.
Yeah. Okay, what's our fourth?
This one goes a little bit back to it's just a tool. There's some overlap there, but just focusing on the learning, keep in mind that it all comes back to that. Don't just throw a bunch of technology tools out there.
Okay. And what's our fifth?
Make mistakes. We encourage our students to feel free to fail and learn from it. We have to keep that in mind. I mean, I think one of the things is if you look at, for instance, professional development, the teachers learn the same way the student, the same rules apply. So we say to our students, it's okay to make mistakes, just learn from them. we have to be willing to do it too. Looking at my own past, my professional growth, it's not that I was necessarily even now that I'm really good with educational technology. It's that I'm okay with trying something new, messing it up, taking a look at what I did, and reworking it. And, we need to not be so hard on ourselves and understand that we're going to try something. Some things will go well, some things won't. And that's okay. Just, we need to frame it the same way we frame it for our students.
Yeah. And I think also, in addition to making mistakes, either admitting mistakes, or we were using a tool the other day in my classroom, and I actually think we broke it and kind of crashed the site temporarily. And they were like, well, what's happening? I'm like, oh, this is something we'll give feedback to the users, the creator of this site, that this happened. And they were like, what? Like, things break and we broke something and we're going to tell somebody. And I'm like, yeah, this is what happens when you alpha or beta test software. Stuff breaks, and it's not a mistake. It's a learning process. And when you partner with a tech company and give them feedback, you're creating a powerful relationship. You're part of a community of users who's using that tool. So, I think viewing mistakes as learning opportunities is such a great way to look at tech.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay. So we've charged through the 5 things to think about when implementing technology, but we have a moment. You are in higher ed. Do you have any favorite ed tech tools, Josh?
Oh man, my latest one is probably Adobe Spark. And the reason why I say that is at first I learned it for the higher ed presentations, but then last year my son was sick for about a week, and he was the type that he doesn't want to miss anything. And so I just showed him this tool, and we did the pages one, and he messed around with it. And because he was able to make something look really nice and professional without adding a lot of animations, it allowed him to kind of let go of that and focus on the content. And I was able to take a step back and say, okay, how do you want to do this? And it was an opportunity to, for me and my son to kind of take a look at it and say, okay, what goes into a proper presentation? Because I've seen a lot of instances with other tools where people or students focus too much on animations and noises and zings. So it's something where they can come up with something really nice looking that they can be proud of without getting caught up in that piece.
Now, Spark is on, PC, Mac, phone, iPad. Which platform did you use for your Spark?
I used the iPad, but then the other thing was I used a green screen technology in it. And we were able to, if you take the apps on the iPad, we took the Adobe video. He made a little video. He did it on dinosaurs. He made a little video on dinosaurs with a dinosaur in the background, and he was able to embed that in the page. So I like the iPads, but honestly, I also like the fact that it's a tool that you can use on any device. I like the fact that it goes across the different systems.
And you use that with your child, and you're using that in your classroom? How are you using it?
One of the main assignment in my intro ed tech class is I want them to create some sort of online professional development that they can share with others. So in the beginning of the class, they do an about me. So we have that social aspect of class, and I have an about me that I use for that. And a lot of them latch onto it, and they'll use Adobe Spark or Atavist, and they create these about me. So since the courses are online, we're able to get a feel for, who are you? What do you look like? What's your favorite team? Whatever they choose to share about themselves. And a lot of them, because they like it, end up going back to that for their final presentation. And I can even share some of those with you where this is my idea, this is my tool, and they're kind of doing what the high school and the K through 12 students do in terms of they don't have to worry about, there's a very steep learning curve with it, and then they can focus on creating a standards-based assessment that they can, share with their colleagues.
Now, you also said Spark, and some use Atavist. Is that what you called it? What is it?
Yeah, Atavist. It's a similar presentation tool. It has more of a page layout or a presentation layout. So whereas Adobe Spark scrolls, this one I was able to, embed a little map in it to show where I live. I'm very big in my classes on having that social aspects, and because some students may have me in more than one class, we use different, I'll have a few different presentations. So it's not, I'm in Dr. Elliott's class, I'm going to see the same presentation again.
So this is what I find fascinating. You learned something with your son a year ago, and now you're using it to teach your students in your class. And I think that's great, because you're not teaching the same thing, 30 years in a row, you're actually iterating and evolving in your instruction, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, before we got on this conversation, I was playing with the Spiro robot because part of my thing is just play around with it, see what happens, see where it goes. And you got to be looking for those ideas anywhere.
Yep. And playing and innovating like a turtle. And, these are such great points. Big or small steps, just take a step of some kind. Focus on the learning, forget the roles, do learn something new. And it's okay to make mistakes, especially as you're trying something new. I'm also going to be playing some more with Adobe Spark. That's really cool. And I've never seen Atavis, so I may take a look at that too. And so this is an example of how I innovate like a turtle. I hear somebody talking about it. I've heard a lot of people talking about Adobe Spark lately. So there you go. That goes on my list of my big 3 next things to try out. Thanks, Josh.
No problem. Thank you.
3D Bear is a fun augmented reality app for the classroom. It links together augmented reality and me and my students. Augmented reality is a new tool for the classroom and needs new pedagogies. Join us Wednesday night, December 19th at 9 p.m. Eastern, as I co-moderate a panel of augmented reality teacher enthusiasts as we discuss the pedagogies of augmented reality in the classroom. To register, go to coolcatteacher.com/AR webinar and join us. Also, stay tuned for a blog post review of 3D Bear on the Cool Cat Teacher blog. So again, you can register at coolcatteacher.com/AR webinar. It's going to be fun. I hope you can join us. Thank you for listening to the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast. You can download the show notes and see the archive at coolcatteacher.com/podcast. Never stop learning.